This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined as always by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk about another roller coaster week at Manchester United. Paul, how are you doing this week, mate?
I'm not bad, Wayne. I'm not bad at all, mate. It's just been
Yeah,
420 minutes of football for United.
yeah, an extreme 120 minutes, which obviously we're going to cover not in 120 minutes, but as briefly as we can. If you're watching live, please like and subscribe. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your questions in. Also, trying this out on my Twitter feed today, so feel free to join in if you're on there as well. Just a few housekeeping things on the website. Friday did a show, a podcast with with Lee Lawrence and Phil Marsh, which is on our YouTube channel. They talked about Phil Jones and the mental health aspects of the injury that he's had and everything like that. Two guys who've gone through similar things. Phil was there at the club with Ollie when he had his own injury that was similar to Phil's. Really, really interesting conversation I had with those guys. On the website, talkthedevils.co.uk, there's a couple of articles I've written. Football Talk by Ron Atkinson, which is part of the series of United's tactical history. I also did a write-up of the match of the weekend, if you want to relive that. And Matt Gillia's column of last week is on there as well. Best place to start, really. I mean, we could talk about West Ham briefly, the League Cup. Everyone will be interested in the sort of Villa comments, but let's very briefly cover what happened against West Ham, Paul. 20-odd shots. It's going to be a similar story to the thing, but we changed the entire team. They had 10 changes. We had loads of shots. For me, at the time, I looked at it and I thought, that's just one of those days. You know, you see them in the League Cup. All those players were kind of rusted. They needed minutes. Couldn't get the ball in the net. 20-odd shots. I think it was 6 on target. Really, they never really looked like scoring. There was a couple of chances. Mata hit the crossbar, the keeper. So I don't know if you got a fingertip to it, but other than that, that was it for United. I thought it was one of those days at the time, Paul. How did you see that game?
There was a Jesse Lingard shot where the keeper's made a save to his right. And he's just got down to it. I think Jesse hit it quite early. I can remember that save when it went over the bar. But as much as you say about the amount of shots, when you bring out how many on target, it's easy just to keep every time how they count all these stats now. You know, it makes it maybe seem better than what it is. But if you watch the game, and as you mentioned, they didn't look like scoring, you have to say that the keeper didn't really have that lot to do. There was a lot of good defending by West Ham, but when you look at the game and you see how when West Ham attacked, they attacked maybe better than what Manchester United did. There was more positive. There was quicker in their the way they moved the ball, the way they shifted. There was more progression with their passing going forward, and it should have, in theory, maybe should have been 3-1 if you want to talk about the two they missed at the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Yarmolenko's one. I mean, great. I mean, sometimes he's incredible how quick his feet are, but he should have scored that. Regardless, that should have been game over. Then he scored that one, but you know, I think United were very, very lucky that that it was Mark Noble going through, someone who's got as much clue scoring goals as what I have. To be perfectly honest, the way he didn't know what to do, he panicked and kicks it straight at De Gea. And sorry, not De Gea, Henderson. And no, but you look at United and you saw, the way he went about the game, what he wanted to do, and you say to yourself, it's just not gonna happen. There was players in there who haven't had a lot of football. Maybe should have had more competitive games going into that, and it was important, so important, to be still in the cup. So important. I'm imagine that Ronaldo would be furious because that's a game gone for him to score goals, and he's going to want to score goals. You look at it as well, the likes of Cavani. Why wasn't he playing? Why, he was on the bench at the weekend. You wonder why he wasn't playing. Why was Martial playing? It's been going on for too long, this story. It's becoming worse viewing than blooming EastEnders. It's just miserable. The whole thing is miserable. And when you just, you see, the way his body is, your body language, you look at the way he is in his face, there's no enjoyment. As the saying goes, he looks like someone who just doesn't want to be there. He's not enjoying himself. And Ollie seems to keep persevering and persevering. It's got to stop now because all you're doing is, I think, worrying. Everyone is just getting wound up in the situation that keeps playing him, and he's getting nothing. He's getting nothing in return.
Yeah.
And if he can't give him goals, give him hard work. You know, do it for your teammates. Forget about if you've got a beef with a manager. Do it for the other 10 people on the pitch for you.
Yeah.
That's all you got. That's all you got to do. And at the end of the day, if you're letting your teammates down, that's criminal compared to like a manager. You can deal with a problem with a manager, but if you're not doing your job for the team, then you're almost being called out by the team because they're looking, not trusting you because they don't believe you're going to work for them. That's your biggest problem because other players are watching that, and if you turn up at their club, it's going to take them a while to trust you. Martial isn't doing anything at all to help himself. It's just not good enough, Wayne. What is giving back in return for the amount, I should say, of opportunities he's had to go out there. Now, if he was to go and as he gets on one of those runs, when he went on runs and he was scoring 3-4 goals repetitively, like in games, just everyone you'll go with that. But now he doesn't look like he's going to score a goal. To be perfectly honest, that's the worst thing.
Yeah. With the Andy Cole comparison, I want to make. You mentioned Martial's selfishness. Now, Cole was like that for the first year and a half he was at United, and the thing about Cole was that he evolved his game and he became more of a team player. Never 100% because you've got the selfish instinct of a goal scorer, and don't get me wrong, you need that, and he needed that. But there was a period of time where he definitely acclimatized. He changed, probably after Cantona retired, basically. He sort of changed his game a little bit, became more involved in the link-up, and I think that time's gone for Martial, by the way. I don't think it's coming. I think it's gone. Move on to Villa. It's basically everything you just said, but with different people. I think Villa deserved the win, first and foremost. They executed the game plan perfectly. They had one clear chance in the first half, at least one, but one definite glaring chance. A couple of good openings in the second. They frustrated, as teams do when they come to United, but they took the time and they knew that they'd get a chance against us. It came at the end, and then you had this conclusion, this bizarre conclusion. I mean, first of all, it came at the end from a set piece, and we've got this set piece coaching, and we've always looked susceptible of scoring from things. So that's that one thing, which is a bit of a nightmare. But then you had this conclusion where Fernandes gets the pen at the other end. Mike Dean sort of finally bows to that pressure that everyone's been saying to give a penalty. But then he steps up to take it. And you had this sort of bizarre subplot going on in the game where the first free kick was given and Fernandes took that, and the second one went to Ronaldo. And he's like, well, Bruno gets one and then Ronaldo gets the next. And then obviously when Bruno stepped up to take it, I don't think anyone in the stadium expected him to score. I'm not even sure Bruno expected himself to score. And then it's one of the worst kicks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, like, he's come out and apologized, which I don't think he needed to do. But yeah, it just sort of summed up the game. We'll get to the team plan and the individuals in a moment, Paul. But the game itself, what did you make of that? Villa right to win, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Villa lost 3-0 at Stamford Bridge, and he turned around and they lost at Stamford Bridge 3-0. They didn't deserve to lose 3-0. If Villa had got a draw or taken something from there, no one would have been surprised. Even Tuchel said about it. He talked about how his team played and how Villa played. And even he was surprised. He said, we scored 3 goals. He's virtually saying we scored 3 goals. And that was all they'd done. And he'll take the win, but he is performance orientated, Tuchel. Like the man who retired in 2013. He was performance orientated. Didn't matter how much you won. He was worried about that. We beat Coventry City 5-0 away from home at Highfield Road. And we got in after the game, and he gave us a rollicking after the game. People down in the corridor at Coventry, most you couldn't believe it. He went mad at us because in the manner in which we went about that game, taking it too easy. We didn't play in a fashion of a Manchester United team because people were taking liberties with over elaborating because the game was won and whatever. So that's how he saw it, Sir Alex, and the way Manchester United are as a club. And so performances do matter. The win, yes. They're the bits that take you up there, but performances is what works you in there as a player and as a team. But the moment I saw that team again, every time I keep seeing this team go out and I'm seeing the midfield and I'm going, tried, tested, proven able, but not proven to go forward in the game or over a season to win things. It's just square pegs in round holes at this moment in time. Can't find a hole somewhere for Pogba to settle. So just put him in a team and let's hope it works out. Villa's midfield was better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of better midfields than at this moment in time than Manchester United. You sit there and you just look at it and you watch them. And I see a lot of different teams and you just see that they've got more fluency in what they do. There's more cohesion. There's kind of there's a plan from the ball transferring from the back line through the midfield to go up front. They've got it in their head what they're doing. And you look at it and, and all of a sudden you see players dropping off and dropping off deep to get the ball in the back line, and you don't want them there because you know that's not their strengths. Their strength there must be more of a strength or a reason why they've been put in there rather than just to go deep and get the ball. When you think so, if you've got centre halves who can do that, why don't the centre halves push it there? Why is it only like you're looking at Fernandes to transfer the ball into a Ronaldo or out to a Mason Greenwood or out to whoever's playing on the left-hand side? You wonder there. I'm even starting to wonder what the reason was to go and be the only people bidding on Sancho and end up paying 70-odd million. And you think to yourself, his strength come from for Dortmund was playing on the right-hand side. And all everyone's really seen of Sancho's montage is put together. And yet he's played on the left-hand side at the moment. Am I seeing the early signs of another Van der Beek scenario going on? Because you look at Mason Greenwood at the moment, he's got to play him. You can't not play him. But it seems like Sancho's not happy on that left side. He's not in the game. He is way out of the game. He's not playing him in the games that matter at this moment in time. He keeps going tried, tested, and still not improving midfield. And I think I'm getting bored of it. It's becoming tedious, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are no different to me. They're not seeing anything. All they've seen from this season so far, what's the biggest thing that's happened is that Ronaldo's come back home, as they say, and that is it. Shirt sales have gone up. Ronaldo's shirt sales have gone massive. Football-wise, nothing.
Yeah. Well, from the stands on Saturday, it was the first time that I'd seen something that they were not people against Ollie, but there was a little bit of frustration there. Firstly with the team, but secondly with the way that we're playing, and a lot of frustration towards Ollie not making the changes. Obviously, the team plan was somewhat impacted by the two injuries, but it has to be said that again, like you just said, that it was an obvious day where we saw the midfield that he trusts isn't up to the job in home games like this. Now, it's one thing to not dominate, but it's another not to be able to do the job that you're actually in there to do, which is the big concern with them. And a lot of people have sort of come to me and said, "Oh, Fred made a few interceptions and played well," but I just thought he and McTominay were very, very poor. They might as well not have been in it. We could have been playing with 10 men and just one man in the middle, and that's how that game would have panned out exactly the same. So poor, and I just don't know what to say, because we've said this many times on this podcast about the midfield not being fit for purpose, but it's there. We'll get to that. We'll get to the entire conundrum in a moment, but for this game in particular, you're exactly right. There should have been a more proactive selection. Another thing I wanted to mention on this was the fullbacks. I mean, you've been saying for a while about Luke Shaw, probably before the Euros, that his form had dipped a little bit before at the end of the season, where perhaps he was getting a little bit ahead of himself, and he needs to go back to the basics. He's taking too many chances. There was a couple of times before the injury, there was one moment where the ball was bouncing really high, and you knew he shouldn't commit for it. And he did. There was about 2 or 3 seconds where the ball was in the air, and you knew that if he went for it, he'd get caught out. And I think that's where Villa got their big chance from. The big chance in the first half, because Shaw just took a gamble. He committed to a ball that he wasn't going to get, and he should have been more sensible and sort of just step back for a second, because that was his strength last season when he sort of played himself back into form. It was because he was making the sensible decisions, and yeah, he got a little bit of confidence and he went forward, but he was doing that from sensible positions, and I don't think he's doing that at the moment. Whereas Wan-Bissaka on the other side, you expect the basics from him, but the basics at the moment, there were a couple of times, Paul, where he overran the ball. He stood still, controlling the ball. He was in possession of the ball, and he overran it. And then that was at some point in the second half where he did that, and then he sort of miscontrolled it, and he went out for a throw. And there was a lot of criticism on him there. And I just think that regardless of all the other parts where it looks like a collection of individuals, like you said, when you've got two fullbacks not providing the width because those two wide players come inside and the midfield isn't doing anything, it's deeply concerning. That it's actually, when you look and see where United are at 1 point off the top of the table, it's strange to consider what they're considering those problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always said that from the start of the season, people were talking about because with Ronaldo coming, can they win a league? I said no. He isn't going to. He's going to make a difference, but I think more of his impact is going to be off the field, as we've seen already. It's about him off. It's about him off the field. It's about what's happening marketing wise, rather than on the pitch.
Yeah.
Because it's still not good. They're still not good enough to win the league. It's as simple as that. And everyone's talking about this unbeaten away record. For me, that's irrelevant, being unbeaten, because if you're losing games at home, what difference does it make in that sense? And when the performances are what they are, and then when you look at the situation from the fullback, I mean, when you look at it, Ollie, when he really needs something and he wants to get it right, and that is not to get beaten, he plays that tried and tested midfield. And the problem is that Paul Pogba will not stay wide. So it leaves Luke Shaw exposed defensively, and then he feels obliged to keep filling that berth in front because Paul Pogba is tucked inside, which is great because that's what happens when you're in possession, decent possession. Paul Pogba would step inside as a fullback, you'll go round. The problem is Paul Pogba is virtually starting in the middle, and then maybe going wide. But the problem is Luke Shaw's going. He's feeling this. I don't know if it's because the media pushed it, because people are saying it. He feels obliged to go forward every single minute. He keeps running forward. His body shape says he's got to pick the times to go and do it, because he can't consistently do it because he's not a natural athlete. He's not there. You just look at him and you go, you can't keep doing this. It's just not going to work out. And he's being found out. Found out in certain ways. He's not, and he's not in the word. He's not a streetwise defender. He doesn't sense danger. He's very reactive in the way he defends, and sometimes he has to go over physical and use that bulk of his to get him out of trouble, to go through people. He gives away a few silly fouls because he's overextending himself, mentally and physically as well. So he has to do that. On the other side with Wan-Bissaka, I think at the moment he looks like somebody who's very low at the moment, and he's feeling under pressure. And everyone's got an opinion about him. He's got a massive strength in his defending, and he's got to go back to basics, and he's got to do that. Stay close to Varane, make sure you're covering around him, win the ball, and just give it to someone early. Don't dribble. You can't dribble. He's 6'20". You can't. He looks ridiculous when he's trying to do step overs and trying to drop his shoulders. A long way to drop a shoulder. Just do your basics, pass and move. Because once he opens those legs, if he opens those legs, it's going to take pretty good defending to, first of all, to see it, but if you don't see it and see it later, to recover. But he's trying too hard, and he needs to simplify his game. And then maybe the two centre-halves will be able to sort themselves out, because Harry Maguire keeps giving the ball away cheaply, overplaying. He's convinced himself that he's a ball-playing centre-half. I think he's got to go back and become what the number on the back of his shirt, to be honest. You normally call it someone just head it and volley it. Do your defending job and let the front six do what they're meant to be doing, and trying to make goals and score goals, because it's just looking all bits and bobs. It's like Bobber job. You're just pulling people in off the streets and put them in a red shirt, and because they're playing for United, you hope that you can go and win games.
Yeah, it's a strange one as well. I know you're saying that, but that six is meant to be pragmatic, and they're just not. So if they're not doing the pragmatic side of it, just put two attacking players in there, force the issue at the other end. If you're going to concede chances, just try your best to have competent midfielders in there that are going to get at the other end. You mentioned about Varane there, and there's one thing that I've noticed with Varane. Well, he's actually getting used to playing with Wan-Bissaka as we're watching it happen. So he's actually pulling himself out wide. There were a couple of times on Saturday where, particularly in the second half, where Wan-Bissaka he didn't know what to do because Varane had sort of drifted from position. Now, I don't know if that's Varane's responsibility to sort of say, this is what I normally do. You need to be doing something different. But I think they're working that as they go along. But it was a little bit of a concern because it's leaving a big space, and you can't leave a big space around Maguire. And we've learned that. So yeah, obviously Villa deserved the win. You can't complain with that. The more minor grumble was that it might have been offside because he's blocking the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think that was. I think sometimes, Ollie, you look how your team's performed, you look at how the other teams performed, and it might be a little bit, but you just got to not saying just let it go. Just look at the situation. It wasn't obvious. Could it have been? It might have been. Did the goalkeeper look like he was in that way? What was the reaction of the goalkeeper? What was the reaction of the players? Nothing.
Yeah.
No complaints. And yet he's sitting on the side, he's turning around, looking at an iPad. And at the end of the day, you look at that and you think, okay, he scored a goal. Did you deserve to win? No. Were Villa the better team? Yes. And that's how you've got to look at everything, really. And sometimes, Ollie, and he starts speaking things, and I think to myself, sometimes are you trying too hard to maybe be like the boss in that sense? We all know that he's a mentor and whatever it is. But you have to still be your own person. Just put your hand up now and again, and just accept it. I think sometimes people would rather than hearing little petty things, especially the way they played on Saturday. A lot of supporters maybe just thought, no, don't say that. Wasn't good enough on the day. Villa got what they deserved, was to come away from Old Trafford with 3 points.
Yeah. Lucy's right in which says Cavani should have come on earlier. And for the love of God, can we use the right wing? The interesting thing I thought with the Cavani sub was that as much as Cavani had a goal power, I didn't understand why we didn't bring Sancho on because you've got Ronaldo in there. Don't move him left. He's not going to put your crosses in. You need crosses coming in for him. Dalot wasn't doing it. His crossing was pretty bad, but Sancho theoretically should have been there to do it. That's what he was bought for. And like you were saying earlier, we're in this position now where it's only a month into the season, and that's what we've got to keep remembering. But it does feel straight away like, oh, is he going to be the one then? Because you've still got Rashford to come back, and Cavani's he's going to be in the mix for games. And now we've left the League Cup. There's fewer games for these players to get chances. So it brings us on to the point everyone now is talking about Ole, and they're going on about how much time does he have and blah 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 blah. 3 defeats in 4 games over a number of competitions, nearly 60 shots in the last 2 games, only 10 of those on target, and they never look like scoring in either of those games. Familiar, Paul, if you can remember this, remember when David Moyes had 20-odd shots and 80 crosses against Fulham? Everyone always pulls that one out. And, we have been a podcast where we've defended the manager and we can see the good that he's done, but, we've also called him out on the criticism. We've been there to sort of say, sometimes he does look naive in the role. It does sometimes look too big for him, like you've just said there. He's learning on the job has been a phrase that you've said many times. It should be remembered that obviously there's a number of different elements in the job. There's sort of you've got to play young players, you've got to play attacking football, you've got to win, you've also got to understand the identity of the club, and then you've also got to be a manager that can handle the press. And it should be remembered that all the stabilisation that he's done, none of the predecessors did that. So you can't discount what a difficult job it is to do that, because those were experienced managers. But, and Paul, you know better than anyone, definitely on this podcast, but better than most anyway, the feeling around the club has been more like its old self this last 3 years than it was at any point in the last 6. So you can't discount that. But the point is that there has to be a concern that even if we don't expect United to win a title or a Champions League because of that poor midfield, they have to be doing better than what they have been in the last few weeks. and there is a potential within the players that Ollie's got to be better than what we have been. He has been a patient man. We've talked about this, the pluses and minuses of this, like the Lindelof. He wasn't good enough, but he stabilised the defence. Luke Shaw, we've all seen the benefits of that. He seems to be wanting the same. He wants to will McTominay and Fred to become better players than what they are, and it's not working. And it seems like that's a hill that he might well die on in regards to whether or not he keeps the job or not, because I think we're in a period where he's going to be defined by his ruthlessness or inability to see what we can all see, which some might say is patience, but he's going to cross over into negligence. The issue is that in the next 8 weeks, we've got Liverpool, Spurs, City, Chelsea, Arsenal in the space of 6 games, basically 6 league games. Spurs and Chelsea are away games. He's not going to gamble. That midfield is not going to be gambled with. Really, he's not going to do it, is it? It's a difficult one because I can see, on one respect, that midfield has won in big games, but I don't know what he does, because there's got to be, like Everton, Villarreal, and we'll come on to those games in a moment. Those are the games where he's going to have to now try something and hope that it works, or we're all going to see that, and we're all going to be touching some lucky rabbit's foot or like a table near us to sort of say, can we get through that period in terms of results? Because a lot of people now are probably thinking, I don't care if we don't get through that period, because he'll find Ollie out and then we'll be looking for a new manager. I don't necessarily think that will be the case, but I think that it is the set of results that is going to define not if we're certain that he will be a brilliant Man United manager, but if we're certain that he won't be, if you get what I'm saying. We can learn it. This next period of games will say, all right, we know that he's not really the man for the long-term job, and it'll be a case of when and not if he gets replaced. How do you see that for Ollie? Because, I mean, that's the gamble that he's now got. This next run of games, which is going to be very difficult for him, he has, regardless of what anyone, his critics say, and regardless of how much I agree with it, the progression has been third to second. There has been a development there. He has stabilised the club. He's going to look at that and think, I think I should stick with what I've got. But like I said, he could very well have his future defined by not making a change. Where would you stand if you were Ollie now? I mean, it's very difficult. It's not an easy situation for him. It's not an easy solution. A lot of people will be saying just play Van der Beek, but it's not as easy as that, because if he plays Van der Beek and it goes wrong, he's still going to get the criticism.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that he's played Van der Beek, but what he's done is every time he's played Van der Beek, he's put him in a team of non-regulars. He's gone into teams with other players who haven't played a lot of games. So you've got players who are struggling for match sharpness. Forget about training every single day. If you don't play games of football, you lose that awareness. It's like not driving a car for 6 weeks and then suddenly jumping in the car, and it takes you a while to get used to things that happen around, and you need that driving sharpness, to regular driving, to help to get to keep it, to keep you going, repetitive driving, I should say. But look at that scenario with Ollie and Van Beek, is that Van der Beek's never start, has never had a start in a game like Aston at the weekends, being out there. So it's a bit of a concern for me, and what he's going to do, and there's reasons why people want to be managers, and there's reasons why people don't want to, and one of the reasons why is having to make those big calls and having to stand with them and be ready for the repercussions if it doesn't go your way. If he goes and makes that call now and say plays Van der Beek and he doesn't get that result, he's not going to get the next game. People ain't going to accept that Van der Beek's going to need time to bed in. They believe it will happen now, and it doesn't work that way. So Villarreal is a big test, regardless of how things are at the moment. If United were at the top of their game, playing Villarreal would be a tough game. I've seen it too many times over the years. With the Champions League and group games, just really struggle to beat them. It's just those games, and I think it gets in the heads. It's in the heads of a lot of fans thinking about Villarreal now playing them, especially with the manager as well. Who's there's just something about that game. And you look at Everton last season, 3-1 up, and it ends up 3-3, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If I'm correct. Yeah. So again, a little bit about Everton You just don't know the manager. He'll be up in his game even more because it's Manchester United. He's still got that instinct in him. Being the manager of the other team in Liverpool and coming to play at Old Trafford and looking to get something from it, because he'll keep them closed up and very tight to make sure, or trying to help himself to get something out of the game, to take something away. So these two games are defining games at this moment in time. They're either going to get over them and do it right, and get 3 points on the board in the Champions League, then another 3 points on the board in the Premier League, and then that will ease the path into the game after. If he doesn't over these 2 games, get what he's expected to get out of them, then it's all going to be starting again. Also Manchester United could be talked about as much as what Arsenal were at the start of the season about their form and results.
They're always talked about more than anyone anyway, aren't they? So, Ian Turley makes a good point here. He says the team don't ever seem to start games with a high tempo, or in the rare instances where we don't sustain the tempo. That's on the manager. It's a good point, and I think that's what's got to change in the next couple of games. United have got to start fast. They've got to get the crowd up, especially both games at home. They had a run of 4 home games and they've lost 2 of them without scoring and never looked like they were going to score despite having loads of shots. You can't allow that trend to continue. And like Paul says, I think every competitive game has been drawn against Villarreal. I know we lost on penalties. Lucy again says that Van der Beek is not the man. And that's a good point again, because you're at that situation where there's all these different midfielders. Matic, he doesn't have the legs. The other alternative is then, like it used to be in your day, Paul, when there's a senior player not going well, a youngster's waiting in the wings to come and take his place, and United haven't had that. It's just filled with a lot of squad players. The closest that we've got is Hannibal in the under-23s, who's played quite well. It looks like he might actually have a presence to sort of... Normally, he plays a little bit further up as a creative playmaker, but I think they've tried to play him a little bit deeper to see if he can boss games a little bit, have a little bit of presence in the middle. And he looks like he's got a bit of the confidence to do that. And it makes me wonder, do you look at the Villarreal game then and put him on the bench and say, bring him on if we're in a position where we're winning? It's a very difficult situation for him because, as I said before, the Champions League, like against young boys, you can't afford to really rotate your team.
That's right, but I look at the moment in time, and it may be just the wrong game, just to suddenly brings in from the cold. It doesn't. It seems too panicky to go and do that. Should have been in and around already, rather than put the big onus on him, because there'll be a press coverage around the lad, and he doesn't need all that. He's got Cavani there, and you pinch yourself. Can you kind of knit a Cavani in and around a Ronaldo? Could you get something like him playing in and around him? I'm not going to say off him. I'm not going to come out and say in a number 10 role, because that sounds a little bit too like I'll sit around playing FIFA too long and I'll straight away want to closet him into one position. But you look at the way Cavani plays, he's a goal scorer, he's a goal maker, but he's a workaholic. He never stops running. He's a fantastic athlete as well. And you look at someone like Ronaldo, Ronaldo would respect someone like him, and Ronaldo likes pulling off of people. And he's strong in the air, and he looks, and if someone keeps running in behind, as Cavani will do religiously, just make those runs from deeper areas, really, so people can see the runs. Is that going to create space for Ronaldo? Or is, all those different things come into it. Fernandes works in and around, but it needs another. I think it needs another dynamic player on the pitch, because you look at it, they're quite laboured. They're laboured at the back. Midfield is laboured. McTominay, Fred only comes to life when he's chasing around the ball like a scurrying around. He's just going around, but not with the ball. McTominay is very upright, and he's not. He doesn't get around the park quick enough, and it needs more sharper players. When you look at other teams, they've got players. You look at Villa. How quick were their feet in midfield? How did they, when they counter attack? How quick were they when they done it? And they've done it, religiously. It was a kind of play, and that was, like it was in my time. Everything was about that. The moment you was under pressure, the back four would get under pressure, win it, and they just deliver it. Bang! It goes into the players who can produce very, very quickly. It wasn't, say, i.e. Brucey or Pally trying to dribble out. They gave it to players who could go and do that job better. And it seems like everybody's trying to make themselves look better all the time. Instead of saying we're a team, it doesn't matter who looks better. The best thing that can happen out is that we get a result together. And it's not that way at the moment. It's very, very like individualist. Everyone's an individual, and there's nothing happening. There's no fluency in the way they play, and it's quite boring, to be honest, watching it. You see, I mean, I still go to the West Ham game. You know, the West Ham game up when they played them in the Premier League, it was still laboured. West Ham centre halves looked sharper with the ball, sharper. The way they defended was better. West Ham in midfield was sharper and better. The difference was that when it really matters, there's extra little bit of quality. The individual suddenly just gets you over the line, Wayne, and you can't keep relying on that all the time. Have to be better than that, to be perfectly honest.
Can United play 4-4-2 with sort of Fernandes and can we say Fernandes and McTominay in midfield and say Sancho from the left, Cavani and Ronaldo up front, and Greenwood from the right?
Yeah, I really don't see why they can't, to be perfectly honest. But doesn't seem to want to be that way. It just becomes a case. And sorry about it's just adjusting myself. Me battery went a bit low. I didn't realise it was that low. It's the hardest. The hardest thing is to make that decision to change it in case it goes wrong. But it's going to be it'll be better. I think there'll be more. Everyone would know their jobs. The hardest thing he's got to do is sort out where to get the best out of Paul Pogba. Week in, week out. I don't think he knows exactly what he's doing. I don't know if he could go and play that bit further up and make a difference up there. Would he liven it up? We know one thing, that he wouldn't be as sharp as a Cavani, but I don't know. You know, at the moment in time, it's a case of waiting for Jesse Lingard to come in and do something. And I don't know where that story's going at this moment in time, but Ollie has to do something different. He can't, when it isn't going what he wants, keep relying on playing McTominay and Fred. And I'm sure I've been persecuted by a lot of people, but I say it again, you play those two together, you 100% don't win Premier League titles. Yeah. You might get over the line in certain games, but you're getting over the line, not playing in the fashion that Manchester United team has always been playing in, or the belief from people watching it that they're going to get this kind of performance that they would expect from a Manchester United team. They've been talking to their kids, their grandkids. This is the way United used to play. And they go and watch them play, and they go, "Oh, where's these wide players that go but bomb on, and these crosses coming in, and this kind of counter-attacking United? Where's that?" And it isn't now. It's relying on individual. People have got their fingers crossed that Mason Greenwood can do something special and catch everyone out when he hits shots early. They're becoming really reliant on Mason Greenwood, and it shouldn't be that way. It should never be that way. You should be enjoying watching the young players, watching playing, but knowing that they can get help from their senior players around them, so the pressure isn't always on them. As much as what Ryan was an incredible talent, but it wasn't ever on Ryan's shoulder to win games on his own for Manchester United. They've taken as special moments because it was a young boy, 17, 18-year-old boy, who was doing unbelievable stuff, but there was other people who were sharing the load with him as well. At this moment in time, you look at it, the load is on Mason Greenwood and Ronaldo. And that's wrong. That's wrong.
The thing with Ryan as well is that he stretched games, didn't he? And he made space for other players, whereas Greenwood's doing it all in front of people. And I had a little bit of sympathy for him at the weekend because he had sort of 3 or 4 big chances for United, but he made them all himself. And maybe on 1 or 2 of them, you might have thought, he could play the ball off. But I'm thinking, well, he's worked to get himself into that position. And, you know, he's earned the right to have a shot when no one else is providing that ammo for him. So it's difficult. And those are the games where you're going to learn your decision making. And you mentioned there, the sort of style of play and everything, and that's where Ollie is now, isn't it? Basically, he's at this point in time where if he doesn't, he's basically got to look at the changes, what are available to him, and make the decision, because this is such a critical period for him that he now looks at it and thinks, am I going to be ruthless enough, or do I have faith that this is going to get me through? You know what I mean? It's a critical decision. I honestly think he has to be ruthless, and that if he's not, then he's going to pay the price for it. He'll ultimately pay the price for it. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, he signed a 3-year deal in the summer." Well, Mourinho signed a 3-year deal, and a few months earlier than that, he was probably on a lot more money than what Ollie was. They're not going to. Yeah, I know there's a sentiment there with him, but if he's not doing the job, he's not doing the job. But at the moment, we've got to remember we're still only 1 point off the top. We only lost our first league game of the season. We're now talking about this in a critical term because we can see that there are improvements to be made, and they could be made. The next game, Paul, to close off, is going to be Everton. They come to Old Trafford again. They started the season with a similar record to us, which is more impressive because of who they are and where they came from. They've got Benitez as manager. He knows what to, he's had success at Old Trafford before. He's going to look at the results of recent weeks. He's going to look at the performance of a team like Villa and think we're more than capable of doing the same thing that Villa did. And he's not going to be afraid of killing a game to get a result. It's going to make that one a very, very difficult. Well, it's a big test for Ollie because if he passes it, then it answers a few questions. But if not, it's going to add to the questions that are being asked.
Yeah, I mean, when they play Everton's strength is their manager, because as a team, they're not as good as Villa. They haven't got the energy levels. They're quite a slow team. Haven't really got any quick players. They're relying on Gray, the lad who they signed from Gray, who they signed from Leicester City. He's been a shining light. From Andrews Townsend has been absolutely fantastic for Everton, scoring and making goals. I saw him when I was at the QPR game, the League Cup. Andrews Townsend was absolutely incredible. Done everything. Anything that happened to them going forward, it was only him. He made a goal, he scored a goal, and he's been like a little mini revelation for them, and fans are taken to him. But it's about Benitez more than anything, how he's going to go about it, and try to make the game as difficult as possible. And the one thing that United have to do, and it's important they do, is score that first goal. They have to score that first goal, and if the earlier they do it, the better. And then you're asking questions of, in my opinion, quite a poor team, quite a slow midfield, a very slow back four. I mean, only the left back, Adina, is their quickest player. The two centre half. I mean, they're not that good. But they've got a manager and maybe one of the best at organising teams. We've seen already about him, what he done when he went to Chelsea. He fought against adversity at Chelsea, and then he went to Newcastle, and they still see him as a hero up there in Newcastle. That's why Bruce is not getting what he's getting, because they like Rafa, which is ridiculous. But that's the way we know about Newcastle, what they're like. But again, with Everton, he'll shore him up, because he was left with a mess, really, absolute mess when Ancelotti went. Ancelotti was all over the place, Everton, with players. It was madness. So he's got a really difficult job. So if United score early, you believe that they can go on. If they don't, it'll get harder and harder. And that's maybe then when you need the fans then to try and do something. But if he doesn't get it right, it could be a tough ride. But it all depends. And then we're talking about the Everton game, but there's that game before. And as you know, Wayne, if the result doesn't go right in that game before, Saturday is even tougher. Really, really tough.
Yeah. Sorry to end the podcast on a fairly somber note, but that's where we are at the moment. Predicting a difficult week ahead for Ollie, and hopefully he comes through it. We've talked just before we came on air, we were talking about how Ollie's been in this position every single October going into it. It looks like he's in a position where he could lose his job. So, I mean, we've got, I know a lot of people think he should be sacked, but I think as supporters, you want the best for the club and you want everything to work out. So hopefully, we do put in two great performances over the next 2 games, and that's what we'll be talking about next week. Whether or not that'll convince for the long term is something that's only going to be something that we can summarise over those tough games that are to come, but that's what we're here to do. We'll talk about it every Monday morning, as we will be next week. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a nice review or rating on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube as well. Get your comments in on YouTube, even if you're watching on replay, and we'll try and get to some next week as well. We'll be back next week. Stay safe, stay well. Thanks for listening and watching.